Hi there, Mike and Adam in the deep end on June 11th, 2024. We will review our Hardway draft back in the FFPC last week, or maybe even before that, recently. That was a tough one, but fun. Good challenge. We'll also go team by team tonight with our favorite players to pick on each team, which should be fun. Get to lay the land here as we exit minicamp, quote, season and get ready for vacation before training camps roll in about a month. Powered by the PlayerProfiler Network. Thanks for being with us tonight. Mike Schoep, Adam Krautwurst here in the deep end.
And if everyone tuned in to watch your interview with the FFPC during the Hardway, they will know who your favorite Buffalo Bill is to draft. So
Listen.
I know we'll get there eventually.
I don't know. I thought I was doing well. I went back and watched that, and I felt like I was doing pretty well. You know, we're drafting, and it's late at night, and I'm sort of hanging in there. And then I had to go and make that question a Bills question. Here's the thing. The question, you hear this question all the time in fantasy land. Who are your favorite players to draft? We're kind of going to be doing that tonight, even though in a vacuum, I mean, anything, it depends on your stacks. It depends on how many receivers you've picked or running backs you've picked. I mean, everything is always fluid. So I really don't like that question. Nothing against Aiden or Dave. I mean, it's not that they shouldn't have asked it. It's just I have a tough time with it because there's nobody that I sit down to draft and think of like, okay, I want to make sure I get this player. And I would say neither should anybody else ever do that, right? You just, especially if you're drafting a lot. I mean, I sort of took this from you, how it also comes down to, well, how many shares of these guys do I have? And maybe like I just picked Mike Evans in a Fantasy Pros for the first time. And I felt like that was okay to do because I never do that. And I'm trying to be more like that this year. So there really is not, I mean, Christian McCaffrey, but so I go and take the question of who are you always drafting to which Bills pass catcher or receiver are you always drafting? They wouldn't let me say Kincaid. Guys who went on that show after me, Bradley and Dan Williamson, of course, they're going to be like, Samuel. That's not that they're wrong. It's just I have sort of an aversion to what I think is the obvious answer. So I can't say Kincaid, and I won't say Samuel, and I really just do not want to say Shakir because I just don't have
conviction,
super high expectations for Shakir. I don't know what he is really. He's a fifth-round pick who the Bills really haven't trusted to do very much in the first 2 years of his career. So I bring up Valdez-Scantling and Claypool. And in my defense, before I was laughed out of the room, MVS did get guaranteed money from them, and we're not going to stay on MVS, all right? I don't want to commit career suicide here and then drag you down with me. I'm not drafting him, and I didn't that night. But I do think he's going to play his sort of usual role, kind of like what Davis was doing. And Davis had some huge games in his career for the Bills. So I think that's possible, at least here. And then Claypool is still interesting to me. And once I mentioned his name, I think they just basically canceled.
That's right. We don't know yet what's going on with the Bills. And I will say that as far as drafting, like drafting do a draft to get a certain player, I think that's a best ball bro thing. I think that's like, hey, I'm doing 700 best ball teams and I need to hit the certain pockets of, hey, I'm really high on Jonathan Brooks, and right now his value is never going to be lower. So I'm going to draft right now so I can get all my Jonathan Brooks shares because, when they find out he has a starting job, when they find out he's playing week one, his value is going to skyrocket. So I think that's those are the only scenarios where you would actually draft a specific player. But yeah, when they're asking you to flag plant on players, it's tough when you don't really have any like real true flag plants yet.
What happens to me is I was going to use Amari Cooper as an example of this as we talk today. What happens to me is there are guys I realize I'm never getting. And Cooper happens to be somebody that I want to have sort of a regular share of because I sort of like him and I like the situation for him. But there's always someone more tempting around that range of the draft, or I don't have a running back yet, and I feel like maybe it's time to do that, or an elite tight end. So that happens to me a lot, where you want to, if you're really, I think, comprehensive about this, you want to make sure you're aware of who are the players that are never on your rosters and figure out ways to get them, not without doing anything crazy, not by doing anything crazy, but guys you go into drafts always, like even take those wide receivers that go after McCaffrey, those 3-4 guys, or even Bijan and Breece Hall after that. I want an array.
Yeah.
I feel like Lamb is probably the safest. I think Jefferson is the best receiver in the league. So I'm going to lean more toward them, all else equal. But I don't want to be bankrupt on Tyreek Hill. So, that's just kind of how you do it. Anyway, yeah, that was interesting that night. Let's look at that. Let's look at that board.
Do it.
And you tell me how you think we did in the Hardway draft. I think it's May 30th, actually. So about 2 weeks ago, picking 7th. We loved Jefferson at 7, I think.
Yeah, we did. I still like him. It's interesting. I been reading a lot of stuff and listening. I'm really diving in now to, it's player take season and trying to find the little nuggets to share with everybody and kind of what is valuable and what makes sense. All that. I just keep coming back to Jefferson. Like you said, it's simple, but it's like, he's the best receiver in the entire league, and he has a rookie quarterback, but how good does his rookie quarterback have to be? And it might not even be the rookie quarterback. It might be, it might be Darnold over there. And it's like, he just has to be Kirk Cousins or even 90% of Kirk Cousins. Right. So now Kirk's a solid veteran QB and who knows where to go with the football. He has done that for years, but I think a player like Jefferson, we like the guys that are chasing the contract, but I think a player like Jefferson, an all-time great like him, the pace that he's on, guys like that, when they get paid, I think that helps them a little bit more. They've got that safety, they've got that, hey, they appreciate me vibe going on. And so, yeah, I like him as the wide receiver 4. I would take him over Amon-Ra for sure. And there's, like you said, there's that top 4, Lamb, Hill, Chase, and Jefferson. I'm happy to take him as the wide receiver 4 in that group.
Yep. The tight ends, 5 in round 2 were a story that night. We wanted to get in on that, and McBride is my favorite pick of all of those. Andrews would be second for me, but I want to be careful on Kelsey. Laporta, I think, is overdrafted, not by miles, but I'm not eager to pick him, so early. And Kincaid, I like. We'll get to him as well, but I think McBride is a better bet. I'm excited about Arizona. This team is McBride with Murray and then Trey Benson as well. I don't know if we got to another one. Maybe, no, we didn't in this draft as I look at it. But a lot of my drafts have a late Greg Dortch or Rondale Moore in there too. We'll see. I feel like Murray is a good bet this year. If you end up passing on, no pun intended, on those higher tier quarterbacks. One more name in here that's interesting to you, either early or late?
I don't know if anything. I mean, the Nick Chubb play for us. I mean, he's our RB4. We don't need him for the first half of the year. Mixon and Andrews. I think we talked a little bit afterwards about how old this team is and how old the running backs are. Mixon, Jones, Chubb, but I think it works nicely in the sense like, as long as Mixon and Jones are healthy out of the gate, they can be kind of our first half guys, and then hopefully we have them healthy all season. But Benson's that rookie running back that can come on second half, and Nick Chubb can come on second half. So I think we've got the right build to be able to do a Benson and a Chubb. But yeah, no, I think it's a solid team. I think it's well built. I think, you had the idea of maybe reaching a little bit on Murray to make sure that we get Murray because he's very important to our team. And that goes back to like your flag planning. Like, it depends on who the team is, depends on who the players are. Who do we want? We had McBride, so we wanted Murray and Benson. So I definitely like that.
I thought we were maybe at risk of losing on Murray to team 12.
Yep.
They drafted Harrison. And all the teams behind us, except for Austin Martin at 8, had not picked quarterbacks yet. And you see the gap after Murray and Prescott. It's 2 rounds before another goes. I think, again, those guys are like Love and Daniels, are fine. Where's Caleb? Caleb Williams goes 4 rounds literally after Daniels in this thing. But in FFPC or in the Fantasy Pros, you have teams like ours as it turns out, that are happy with just one, which makes for interesting strategy with guys like that. The second tier, or whatever you want to say, quarterbacks tend to, we talk about Watson as well later, like 16 to 18. Those guys often, they'll get drafted usually, but once you see most of the league at one quarterback, you can kind of take your time with a quarterback too, if you want one even at all.
Agreed.
So fun night. Happy to be invited, right?
Yeah, it was a great night. And that's a tough drag. It's the Hardway. They call it the Hardway for a reason. I mean, all Abib and Theo and Daigle and Go Bills, the back-to-back FFPC main event champs, Austin, Noah, Darren Armani. I mean, the list goes on and on. Hubbard, high-low. It's a super, super tough room, but a nice way to kick off the season.
We do have to manage it. We pay for it, and we do have to manage it. So it's not just a publicity thing, or let's get some content creators in a room together. No, we've spent the $350 on that league, and now we're going to have to beat all those people to the waivers punch and head to head. But it'll be fun to compete. Okay, in just a moment, we'll go team by team. Our favorite players to click and pick per team. We'll start with Buffalo, as God intended, AFC, then NFC, East, North, South, West. The only way to do it. But first, before we embark on that, a word from our sponsor.
Hey, why do we partner with the FFPC? Because they have the widest variety of fantasy football formats, and it's the easiest place to find all types of fantasy football contests in the world. What if you want to play for high stakes? Well, they have a $6 million prize pool with their Fantasy Players Championship. They also have way too early best ball leagues that start in February and Dynasty leagues. They have the closest thing to a liquid market for orphans that there is in all of Dynasty. And the FFPC has sponsored us for half a decade because we are actually delivering information that can help fantasy gamers, and they're generating so much interest and bringing in so many new users, casual users even. The FFPC creates a unique experience where you can both compete against the best and make money. Use promo code UNDERWORLD to get $25 off your first team. $25 off your first team at the FFPC with promo code UNDERWORLD. Go get it!
I just got a very disturbing email
Uh-oh.
that apparently today is my last chance to save 10% on a new refrigerator filter. I mean, what happens if I don't pounce on this one today? Am I going to ever hear from them again, do you think?
Do you want to take a minute? I can take it from here. Get that order in. You want to do that?
I'm pretty sure they meet it this time. It's the literal 700th day in a row that I've gotten the email that says this is your last chance to take advantage of this special offer.
That's right.
But maybe they're fed up after that. This is maybe my actual last chance. I think that could be possible, but there's also a chance I'll get the same email tomorrow. So I'm probably going to risk it.
Do it.
Let's go. Favorite clicks per team, starting with the Bills in the AFC East. We've kind of done this already here tonight. I mean, just the pitfalls of the receiving crew and what can happen later in the draft. If you're stacking, you want some of it. I guess maybe for me, Adam, the default answer is Kincaid. ADP at Fantasy Mojo is 25 in the tight end premium, so 2-3 turn. Doesn't sit great, though. And that's maybe what? Am I reaching on Allen there too, or I'm living without him? Underdog, it's more palatable, early 5th ADP for Kincaid. But there's no one else I want to name for this. Allen might be the next guy, but, it depends on how you want to build your team, picking a quarterback so early.
Yeah, those are all great points. It depends on where you're draft. Like, I like Kincaid. He's much easier to stack with Allen in underdog because it's not the tight end premium. Whereas in tight end premium, you got to take Kincaid at the 2-3 turn, which I'm fine with in a vacuum. I mean, if you're taking him there, you're taking him as like tight end 4 or 5. And I think this is a really kind of a unique year where I think the tight end 5 could finish as the tight end 1 this season, just the kind of the way things are panning out. We don't, if Kelsey's kind of fading there. So I like him in a vacuum, but it's hard to stack him with Allen because Allen's usually going in the mid 4th in FFPC. So you don't have to, or late 3rd. It's like at the other end of the draft. So you have to reach for that. So, but in a vacuum, Kincaid is my guy. And I think he has a really good shot to be the tight end one, just as good as anybody else. The big question mark for me is just Knox. Like when Knox was there, he saw 12.5% of the targets Kincaid did. And when he wasn't there, Kincaid went to 19.8. So I think it's going to be closer to 19.8 with Knox this season, but we just don't know yet. So we'll see.
My reluctance quickly on the Bills is more than just the uncertainty over who is going to be on the field for them. I just feel like the offense is going to run really short, that Samuel is going to look like McKenzie a little bit. And, Shakir, I think maybe is somewhat limited. It's a nice idea. Dalton Kincaid down the field. That was the premise. That was the thesis of the draft pick, right? Like just downfield targets. But I don't think this coordinator is really about that. I think it's not a coincidence that Diggs is gone. DJ Moore was what when Joe Brady was his offensive coordinator? Like I don't think they really want to have, I know you would say an alpha, right? Like sort of a wide receiver that's the stud. And part of that is the circumstances with Diggs, but it's also, it sort of puts a cap on all of it for me. Yes. And I'm not a huge Cook fan either. So I'm a little bit worried for their offense, even with Allen, being Allen.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. All my Bills friends try to convince me that Curtis Samuel is amazing. And I'm like, okay. I mean, okay, I think he's probably good, but he's not he's not winning us a Super Bowl. So, or being a fantasy wide receiver one. So yeah, we'll see.
The Bills have maybe literally 8 wide receivers we've all drafted, but have never wanted to start.
Yeah.
And we'll see if that changes. Miami, my answer here has become Jalen Waddle. There seems to be a little bit of hype lately. We picked Waddle in that draft we just showed in the 3rd round. I like that. His underdog ADP is up to late 2nd at 22. At wide receiver 14, Tyreek Hill's age, Mike McDaniel, what that offense can look like, and Waddle is still young. So I like where I'm getting him.
Yeah, that was my pick too. I love Jalen Waddle. The other guy that I really like taking is Jalen Wright. RB 45 going in the 11th round. He's one of those 0 RB guys, right? Or hero RB guys. You take him as the handcuff, or no, you don't take him as a handcuff, but you take him as a running back that's an injury away from being amazing, So he was electric in college, and he fits that offense perfectly. And I just trust Mike McDaniel. So you could take them both. You could take Waddle and Wright, but I'm going to be overweight on Jalen Wright for sure. I
should let you go first on these. Okay. So why do I have to go first? I don't want to take your answer all night. I flatter myself to think your answers are going to align with mine. That's right. Let's see. Well, I'll take the AFC East, and I'll give you the AFC North. We'll see how that goes. New England on underdog, it would be May, because the late stacking is so readily available with the Patriots. You have literally a half dozen comparable receiver tight end options with the Patriots. On FFPC, it's easily Hunter Henry. I mean, with kind of what he's established, I think he's probably the most trustworthy passing option they have. There are some interesting rookies there, but I love Hunter Henry. What is that? Tight end 20? It's like the 13th round or thereabouts. Sometimes you get stuck at tight end, and you need a guy like that.
Yeah, no, I think that's fine. I think he kind of got lost there somehow. I mean, that offense has been so bad, and that coaching staff and the quarterback have been so bad. So maybe now he gets revamped there. Ramondre Stevenson is my guy, RB24, pick 7.5 ADP over FFPC. Again, I like him in these hero or 0 RB builds a lot. The new coaching staff just came out and said they were very impressed with his pass catching ability. I mean, he's a guy that some games, well, not last year, but maybe the year before, had the double-digit catch type games. He's a very versatile type of running back, and that's what we want. We want running backs who can catch and running backs who get the goal line carries. So I'm okay with him in the range that he's going for running back, and I think he has a chance to be the workhorse there in the mid-7th round.
He's our RB1 in our Dynasty FFPC RotoViz league, so I hope you're right. Jets, isn't it ironic how the Jets have 2 first-round picks? Longest playoff drought in the league. The Jets, what is their offense? What does their offense look like? But, of course, Garrett Wilson was the offensive rookie of the year, and Breece Hall probably would have been if he didn't get hurt that year. So, immense talents. My answer for this is Malachi Corley. I think he's on the field. We picked him in that Hardway draft as well, around the 17th round. I don't know if he can be like a starter in a tournament like that in the regular season, but I think he's in a great situation if Rodgers is right.
Absolutely. I think there's a guy that was very undervalued going into the draft. And so my only concern with him, and I love Corley and I love Rodgers and I love the Jets I love the Jets team this year. But my only question is like Rodgers with like rookie receivers. It's always been a thing, right? Like, you got to earn his trust, and Rodgers can be kind of a jerk and this, that, and other thing. But my answer for this question, anything around the Jets, will always be Garrett Wilson. That's been my guy, and I'm waiting for him patiently. So, but I'm taking him again at the 1-2 turn this year. I think he could be a top 3 fantasy receiver this season.
Look at his stats from last year, remembering what the Jets were.
Right, with the worst quarterback of all time.
He's above AJ Brown for me. Right with Puka. I like drafting Puka. I think I might be Garrett Wilson over St. Brown.
Yeah, right there. I completely agree. I think, and that's another, like you were talking about the first 4 receivers, mixing them in. You do that with the next 4: Amon-Ra, Puka, Garrett Wilson, that whole group.
Right. Okay, Adam, pressure's on. AFC North, Baltimore.
Oh, you would listen. You already know the answer to this question for me.
Andrews.
Yeah, that's right. No, Derrick Henry, a young man named Derrick Henry. I just think double-digit touchdowns is a lock for him. And Gus Edwards was around 50% of the carries last year. They're like, oh, is he going to get the volume? Is Derrick Henry going to get the volume? Do we want Derrick Henry to get the volume? No, we just want him to be super efficient when he's out there. And they love Derrick Henry. They couldn't wait to get him over there. He's going to be in great shape. He's a workout warrior. I mean, 14, 15 touchdowns. I feel like, I don't know what the Vegas line is, but I'm betting the over on whatever it is. And that locks him into, he's not going to be the RB1 unless he scores like 25 touchdowns, which would be insane. But he's not going to get the catches to be able to get in there. But I think he's just such a lock and a safe pick in the third round.
Second and goal at the 4. Cannot wait for the weekly play action fake to Henry, the Jackson rollout. The linebackers are all afraid. They attack him, and he just flips the ball to Andrews for another one. The answer for me,
Andrews too.
It's Andrews for me every year. You and I have been on him every time. I think, again, he makes a lot of sense going as tight end 5. It's still early, and he has a lot of fans, in the fantasy industry. But I'm never not happy getting Andrews on my team.
Yeah,
Henry's a fun one to talk about. Jackson just did not want to run the ball at the goal line. Like, that was just not a part of their offense. It was weird. It helped get them beat in the playoffs. I thought, as we've talked about before, there were sort of bad signs early in that game, and they went down throwing the ball constantly and scoring 10 points in a game they probably never should have lost with as good as their defense was that day. Cincinnati, who do you like?
Yeah, Cincinnati's interesting. I want to. The guys I've been taking the most on this team are the 2 running backs, and because you just don't know what's going on there, and they're going at good ADPs. I should probably have that ADP ready here. Zach Moss, RB26 at the 7-12, and Chase Brown goes even after him. I like kind of mixing them, not on the same team, but like kind of taking my turns as that kind of comes out. We'll find out who the guy is there. But with an offense that's that good, you could see the run game being heavily involved there. They're going to be favorites in a bunch of games. The Jamar Chase thing, I'm not super high on. Like, out of those 4 receivers, Mike, we were talking about earlier, Jefferson, Chase, Hill, and Lamb, I would have him be my 4th. I just don't think he's that target monster that those other 3 are. So to me, it's just kind of going in between those 2 running backs, Chase Brown and Zach Moss.
You need the explosive plays from Chase, and you didn't always get them
right
last year. What will they be around him? Higgins will probably be there. I was speaking with renowned Bengals analyst Joe Goodberry last week, who, by the way, if it needs to be said, he's also from Western New York, the same San Pedro de Macorís of fantasy. I don't know how intense a fantasy player Joe is, but he is, I think, the leading analyst out there when it comes to the Bengals. And he mentioned he's got a project coming, or a video coming on how good he thinks Brown is. Chase Brown. And he said that all the speculation from the OTAs has been very favorable toward him. I can't really pick Moss, but he's got me curious on Brown, and I've been doing some of that. Cleveland.
Yeah, Cleveland. I'm kind of back on the Deshaun Watson train as far as the ADP. He played 5 games last year. 3 of the 5 he finishes a top 10 quarterback. Lots of talent there. Lots of receiving talent. Tight end and Njoku breaks out. So coach I think is very sharp. So I think that Deshaun Watson, if he wants to be good again, whatever he thought he was, I think he can do that. Everything's there for him to do that. We don't know if he wants to yet, but he's a guy that I love taking, like kind of after, if you want to wait on quarterback, I think he's perfectly fine.
We are doing a summer series of drafts, all live stream, that began a couple of weeks ago with an FFPC, and we drafted Watson late after picking Caleb Williams. That could be an interesting decision to have to make each week. Let's go. It's coming up. It's right around the corner. Watson versus Dallas or Caleb Williams versus Tennessee, week 1. I would be on Williams.
Caleb Williams versus Tennessee. Probably Caleb Williams. I mean, I like the Watson shootout potential there, but Tennessee's defense stinks.
I already made a comment about Amari Cooper. I would hope to get more Amari Cooper this summer. Njoku, I think, is a fine pick. Running backs, that scares me, but that's kind of been the team they have been, which is leaning on running back. I just don't know. I mean, even Foreman, what to expect there. So it's not really an area where I'm too eager. Pittsburgh, however, a lot of interesting mid-round options with the Steelers. Adam, who is their wide receiver 2?
Pat Freiermuth. That's my pick. I think that's their wide receiver 2. No, good question. I have no idea who the wide receiver 2 is, and Arthur Smith doesn't care either. He stinks. That's what scares me off the wide receiver 1. George Pickens is all the underlying metrics are there, all the target share is going to be there, but can we trust Arthur Smith? Tight ends, though, Arthur Smith loves the tight end. It might not be Kyle Pitts, but it might be the backup or the third stringer there in Atlanta. But I think Pat Freiermuth is the guy, healthy, first round pick, very good receiver, breakout receiver for a tight end. Freiermuth is my guy this year.
Fine. Van Jefferson maybe is a name to not completely forget about. Roman Wilson from the draft. That's who the Steelers are looking at. Calvin Austin as well after Pickens. All right, AFC South. Houston, such an interesting and promising team. I'm not really that into Stroud in drafts with Richardson right near him. I mean, if they have a good defense, not especially pass heavy, the Texans, at least last year, not the huge running upside. But as far as the rest of it, everybody is interesting to say the least. Mixon is for sure, and I think I would say Tank Dell would be my favorite receiver to pick from the Texans at price.
Yeah, I agree. I just like Tank Dell because he's the cheapest of the 3 because we don't really know what's going on. I think they're all gonna take their turns smashing. Maybe Nico was so good last year, down the stretch in the playoffs. We know what Diggs is. So, but Tank Dell to me is the best value pick there, even though he's still going. They have 3 top 26 receivers being drafted. I don't think there's any way, especially what you said with the run rate that they do. Last year, they were they threw the least amount on first down. Them and through 3 other teams. They have to throw more on for first down. You'd think you're bringing in all these receivers, all these weapons, kind of unleash that second year quarterback, which would kind of help the Tank Dell argument there. But yeah, I'm perfectly fine taking Dell.
Indianapolis, everybody loves Richardson. Doesn't even really need to be discussed. Pittman, though, a lot of people seem to be worried about just what the volume will be for Michael Pittman. It really comes down to me to a question about how good you think he is. The great receivers get fed. They get open and the ball comes their way. And there's always been somewhat of a debate on him. I remember listening to, I'm not going to remember what show it was, but Matt Harmon was a guest from Reception Perception and was asked about Pittman. And he's like, no, he's really good. It might have been ETR. It could have been a Corain Enterprise. I'm sorry for not remembering, but it was Matt who sort of relaxed me on Pittman. Like, this is a guy who was deserving of it. So I'm okay with him, and I think maybe the value is pretty good just based on how many people I hear, to say the least, unsure about what his ceiling is.
Who's the backup there? Flacco? Is he the backup Q?
Yes.
Yeah. See, that to me matters in situations like this where, Pittman was able to succeed last year. Minshew was there and be able to kind of run the offense if Richardson goes down. I really like Pittman because, again, Richardson gets hurt. You have Flacco, who just proved last year he could still play. And so I like Pittman, third round, especially in the third round. It depends on what site you're on. A lot of times it's, if you have to start 3 receivers, I know like over at the FFWC, he can go at the, back end of the second, underdog, that type of deal because the receiver thirst. But I definitely like him. I like Downs too in best ball, man. I love taking Downs, kind of that deep threat, big play guy, big speed guy. So I really like him, but I am not on Jonathan Taylor this year for sure.
Interesting. Flacco, the NFL comeback player of the year, not having been in the league until Thanksgiving. That's why my bet on comeback player of the year this year is Darren Waller, who
comes back for 3 games.
That's right. Can't even literally just retire. It's always sources say the Giants think that he might retire. And so just sit it out until late in the season and then boom, comeback player of the year. I like it. Jacksonville, I've been pretty much only drafting value. I don't see anybody with a super high ceiling based on their price. The answer ends up being Brian Thomas for me because the measurables are so impressive. And if he happens to be one of these rookies that's just great right away, then that's the guy who breaks through the ceiling because, Kirk is fine and Davis has his moments and ETN is fine. It's all kind of just fine. Engram is probably a little bit better than fine. Maybe he would be a respectable answer to this, but I think Thomas is an interesting gamble.
Yeah, I like Thomas. Any bet on Gabe Davis not being good is probably the correct bet. So, but a guy for tight end premium who I love is Evan Ingram, obviously, for all the reasons why everybody loves him. He's a receiver, and he's and him and Trevor Lawrence are locked in. Kirk was a little high for me as far as ADP, so I don't hate Kirk. I just don't like where he's going.
Tennessee, both running backs, interesting. Even drafting them together, I've done some of that. Not knowing who ends up being the leader, if there is one, and Hopkins, I would say I'd throw him in too because maybe it's a little bit uncomfortable with his age, but great player.
Yeah, and he's only 32. He's moving. He's really falling on the draft board. People just don't want to click his name. They're going to go much more pass heavy this year with the new coordinator in there. They're bringing in all these passing weapons, right? They're bringing in the running backs with the speed and the catching ability. They're grabbing receivers. They're picking up Calvin Ridley. So I think they're going to pass a lot more. Whether the quarterback's good remains to be seen. But yeah, I definitely like Hopkins.
Denver, you've got to sift through some wreckage with the Broncos, but I think McLaughlin makes some sense, and I'll get back into Mims. It's cheap.
Yeah, McLaughlin definitely makes sense for sure. I really like Cortland Sutton, though. I think he's still going too low. I'm trying to find his ADP. There we go. Wide receiver 49. I mean, again, Sutton is kind of washed, and they're off, and Denver's offense is kind of washed. But I mean, wide receiver for 49. If you don't think they're good, they're going to at least be playing from behind. I mean, that's not even a wide receiver 4. So, I mean, I definitely like, I can't believe I'm saying I definitely like taking Sutton at the 9.98 ADP of the FFPC.
Kansas City, I think for me, it's Rashee Rice.
Interesting. What's the update on him? I mean, do we think he's missing time? Do we not know yet? Is it?
I would guess it's still everybody seems to only be guessing that he does, but you want, good builds with guys that can help you win the big money late on either site in any format. And I would find it really unlikely that he's not with them late in the season, like from mid-season on or something. It reminds me of Kamara, where we're all guessing, we see the video and hear the details, and we're all thinking like that's so bad for him. But
right.
Even in that situation, it didn't end up being super long-term. So Rice in the 7th round of FFPC drafts, I'm fine with it.
Yeah, the guy I still can't quit is Travis Kelce, especially now that his ADP's dropped. He's tight end 2, going at the 2.3. I love as you can start a draft. Garrett Wilson, Travis Kelce. I really like doing that. People forget he got hurt when we were out in Vegas. Oh, is he going to play? He didn't play week 1. He got hurt. I think he was probably playing with that injury all year. He's not going to play as much. If you look at like his numbers, like his route participation, all that type of stuff, his numbers are going to be lower because they're resting him more. But that's fine. When he's in there, they're still going to target him. That he was still big down the stretch for them again. So I really still like him as, especially as is the tight end 2. So Kelsey's the guy that I'm going to go with.
I just got another upsetting email, but in this case, it might be a valid criticism. It's from the NFC. Wondering, when are you guys going to get to
when
us?
are we going to talk about them? That's
and
right.
How much time will you allot for NFC analysis? Maybe there is
a team.
This could go to the high courts. The possibility that we sort of go against God's law and lead with the NFC one of these times, because we're not even there yet, and we have about 12 minutes.
Well, we're going to skip some teams.
Skip some teams. Chargers, it's probably Josh Palmer, but you won't catch me running to any podium.
No, when I'm running to the podium too, we can go quick. J.K. Dobbins, round 13. They have no running backs there, and they love to run the ball.
Wow, look at you on Dobbins.
Again.
Good for you. Raiders, I want to say Bowers. If the talent is so outstanding, even if it's the Raiders, a team where you expect there to not be good decisions made, I don't know. Like, as a rookie, we've seen rookie tight ends last year come through. He should be on the field a lot. Good is good. Adam?
I don't disagree. Good is good. I'm going to go with Zamir White. Just, again, a guy that you can take that might get a ton of work. You could take him in a hero or 0 RB build, and he might be just fine for you.
Dallas, last night I did 2 underdog drafts. Adam knows I got 101 in both. I mean, what are the odds? Well, I guess we could calculate that. But I chickened out from picking anybody but McCaffrey. I just don't want to stress out, maybe like I was last year, assuming I'm going to get my running backs, nothing to worry about. I want to have one at least, but one for sure locked in. And, if it happens to be the best fantasy player of all time, then okay. But I kind of think Lamb deserves to be the first pick.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, and there's a lot of builds that make it where you want to take Lamb because the running backs, the 2-3 are nice or something like that. But I totally get what you're saying. But there are drafts. I did a draft the other day where was that with you? I'm trying to remember who that was with, where we got McCaffrey at the 103. That might have been a draft.
That was us.
That was us, yeah. So it's not like years past where you have to take him at the 101 and you're not going to get him. You can certainly get him in other spots. But are we Cowboys? Is that what you're talking about? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
No, sorry, I forgot. I lost my train of thought. But my answer to this is Brandon Cooks, going super late. He's only 30 years old. Had scored 8 touchdowns last season. Going as wide receiver 57.
So weird as you get older. It was shocking almost to see Brandon Cooks Jr. in this year's draft.
Who's that? Brandon
Cooks Jr. Frank Gore Jr.
That's right.
Bronny James. We're getting, these guys that seem young to us that have kids now. Just kidding. Brandon. I don't know if there's a Brandon Cooks Jr. If there is, he's probably not draft eligible. This is why the NFC emails to complain, because this is just silly. Giants, Malik Neighbors.
Yes, I've taken him like almost every meaningful draft. So Malik Neighbors is my guy, especially when you can get him like wide receiver 26. I just think he's too good, and they're going to force feed him.
Philadelphia, I looked up some never too early best ball drafts. I did about a half dozen of those, and I found Devontae Smith on like the first 4 at least that I looked up 4 of them, and he was on all of my teams from those drafts. So I think I have to say Devontae Smith. I'm not all in exactly, but sort of like a Waddle. He's gotten paid, narrow target distribution. AJ Brown is older. It's similar to Miami.
I think Devonta Smith's going to be a guy that if you want pieces out, it might be too late, but get him now he's been going in the 4th round. I mean, I am all in on him in the 4th round for sure. He's starting to move his way up. Nico Collins. I mean, why can't he get more than They're going to pass more, and he's the 2. Nico Collins might be the 2, might be the 1, but might be the 3. So yeah, no, I like Devonta Smith a ton in the 4th round.
What about Washington for you? The running backs are interesting. I feel like maybe you talk about Kelsey and an injury. Isn't that a little bit of our Eckler story from last year? He talked openly about wanting to get out of there. What are the odds that there's more in the tank for him? I think they're fair.
I think they're fair. I think everyone just is obsessed with that one clip where Eckler looked like he was running like a 40-year-old man running like me out there. And we don't know. Maybe he was exhausted. Maybe he banged his knee to play, but we don't know. I mean, nobody's that slow in the NFL. I think he's got something left. I like taking pieces of him as long as you're going to throw it to him. The problem is a lot of these young quarterbacks, especially quarterbacks that are as athletic as Jaden Daniels, would rather just run themselves. And that's my guy in this offense. I really like taking Jaden Daniels. I think he's going to be his electricity on the field, the running ability alone is going to guarantee him like a top 10 quarterback spot if he rushes. I think it's like 80 carries. If a quarterback gets 80 carries, he's almost a lock to be a top 10 fantasy quarterback. So I'm going to pick another quarterback with him. I'm not going to pick him solo, even in these FFPC leagues, because I do think there's a chance he can get hurt with his small frame. But Jaden Daniels is my guy.
Chicago, very exciting, which is weird. It's never exciting with Chicago, but it is right now. DJ Moore, he's the one that answers all the questions for me.
There you go. Caleb Williams. So he's a guy, again, I like all the weapons he has around him. I don't know what the receivers are going to do, but I know Caleb Williams has all those receivers and some tight ends. So I'm going to go Caleb Williams.
When it comes to Detroit, I'm not so excited to pick the top guys. Like it'd be Garrett Wilson over St. Brown. I'm going to be light on St. Brown this year, and Gibbs wanting a receiver instead right around where he goes. Ends up sort of being Jameson Williams for me by default. But that's not like me being super confident in that. How many targets can he actually earn in an offense with so many other good options? Montgomery is similar, where you sort of maybe you have the 49ers week 17, or you just want some piece of the Lions. But usually I'm settling for what I get when it comes to Detroit.
I agree with you on Jameson Williams, but I'm always super excited to kind of take any of these players. But Gibbs, I love Gibbs. Especially if I can get him at the 1-2 turn. I'm not going to reach on him, but they know how to use him in the right spots, and he was just so good last year. So Gibbs would be the guy he would be the running back that I would really like at the 1-2 turn.
Green Bay, I love all of it. It's like my first take of the offseason was finding ways to, you fall into Jordan Love in the 8th round or whatever that is, and there are 5, 6, 7 receiving options you can put with him. I'll just take my chances on any of it. Best ball, even managed, managed is a little trickier because does one of them emerge and does Love give you enough upside? But best ball, I don't think you can go wrong with the Packers.
Completely agree. Best ball to take them off. We do have to take a player stand. I'm still on the Christian Watson bandwagon. I think he has the highest upside. I think he's the most talented player there. If they can get these hamstring injuries figured out, I think he'll be the guy.
Minnesota is challenging. The one really weird one for me is where Hawkinson goes, coming off a bad knee injury late in the season or whenever, like very late. He goes 66 picks ahead of Hunter Henry at the FFPC, more than 5 rounds, 47 ahead of Conklin, 4 rounds ahead of Conklin. Is he even going to play? I have a tough time. I'm never getting Hawkinson.
Yeah, I'm never getting Hawkinson either. He's a guy that's probably going to get dropped early in the season because people don't want to wait around for him. But Ty Chandler, I mean, they're talking him up a lot right now. They just said recently they thought the Vikings think they have 2 number 1 running backs. So he's a guy I like taking, or I will start not like taking. I don't think I've taken Ty Chandler a lot, but he's a guy that I'm going to start clicking a lot. 5 or 6 rounds past Aaron Jones.
NFC South. You know what, NFC South? Stop emailing me. Earn it. You get 1-word answers today. You get 1-word answers. Atlanta, Bijan.
Drake.
Carolina, Brooks.
Brooks.
New Orleans, Miller.
Kamara.
Really?
Yeah. The pass catcher. I can't get out of my head. He rolls back. He rolls out of bed last year and catches like 15 balls in his first game. Like they use him the way he should be used. If they keep doing that, I think they'll be okay. I think he'll be fine.
No Taysom votes.
No.
When it comes to the Saints. I should have to admit, I did pick him as quarterback in a Fantasy Pros recently.
Admit it.
Maybe they'll change it again. I don't know.
That's right.
He's never going to be my starting quarterback. Tampa Bay, Godwin.
Godwin moving back to the slots. Chris Godwin.
Arizona. I mean, we've talked about Kyler Murray kind of on every show. Love the value, love the potential. Marvin Harrison, McBride, really interesting team at Buffalo week 1.
Trey Benson. Take him now. Be prepared for the ADP spike when he either wins the job or Connor gets old.
The Rams, the tight end position at the Rams is interesting, and I want to have some exposure to it. It's the last round. This happened last night with a Stafford team. Davis Allen or Colby Parkinson, or I guess even Higbee, but the young Allen is my preference, although I have no idea. But I kind of want to think that somebody there is going to be relevant.
Yeah, I got to hear a little coach speak on that before I mean, Higbee burned me so bad a couple of years ago. Fourth round Cooper Kupp. I will never say no to fourth round Cooper Kupp.
Happy to have him on that Hardway team of ours. San Francisco, I guess I've got to say McCaffrey. How interested are you in Pearsall?
Well, we took him. I think we took him too in the hard way. Mm-hmm. I kind of just want to take Pearsall because he's a good young receiver on a really good offense with a good coach. Like I just want to bet. I mean, you're not starting him week 1, but those guys get banged up a lot over there. Debo gets banged up. Kittle gets banged up. He could find his way into a weekly kind of spot start role.
Finally, Seattle. I have bad feeling about Seattle.
Yeah,
I know a coaching change, and maybe that's actually a good thing for them, despite all the success Pete Carroll had. Maybe they'll throw more. It's Mike McDonald, who was the defensive coordinator for Baltimore. They've got the Washington Huskies offensive coordinator in place in Seattle, so it kind of sounds good. Charbonnet.
JSN for me. Charbonnet is a great idea though too. But JSN for me. Remember a long time ago, aka last year and the year before, we would just blindly take really good second-year receivers because that's when the breakout happens. So I'm going to kind of do that because I think he's talented and he's going as wide receiver 445. So, Lockett's old. And I think Smith and Jigba with a new coaching staff could surprise, even if he's only a wide receiver 2.
Where are you at on Metcalf? I feel like I hear you always sort of lobbying for Metcalf.
Yeah, I like Metcalf. I think his worst year was like wide receiver 24. So if you're getting in between wide receiver 20 and wide receiver 24, I think you're getting him fine at ADP. And maybe there's something that they can unlock there with the new coaching staff.
The NFC South is just in the chat all this time. What did Seattle ever do to deserve all this extra time compared to we get one-word answers? They're pissed.
They're disgusted. Earn it. Like you said.
Earn it. Okay, our next show is our next live stream.
Yes.
That is next Tuesday night, 9:30. If you're looking to have your draft commented on, live streamed against us, it's right there for you at the FFPC. It's the $125 best ball tournament, 9:30 next week. And they're going to come pretty fast and furious here as we get into July. There'll be shows where we do 2. There'll be, weeks in a row where we're doing drafts, and the celebrity series.
Oh, baby.
It's underway. We're almost ready to announce that lineup, but it'll be sports figures, from outside of fantasy football that'll jump on with us and share a team with us, and, player takes will abound. So that's something we're looking forward to in the summer. But yeah, if you want to jump in one of these, the schedule we're running is the pin tweet at the Deep End, a Twitter account, X as Adam calls it, Deep End FF1. You can see the schedule, and we hope to have you in a draft with us soon, maybe even next week. Okay, Adam, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks for watching and listening, everybody. Mike and Adam. Next week, best ball tournament draft live here in the deep end.
See you guys.
From the Podfather to you, I deeply appreciate you tuning in. And many ask, what can I do? What can I do to help support the hosts, the research they do, the production costs? Go to PlayerProfiler.com, Dynasty Deluxe, World Famous Draft Kit, Rankings, DFS Dominator, and of course, Data Analysis. Subscribe to any one of those, and you support all of us and take Player Profiler to the moon.